welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're kicking things off with a Visual 101 masterclass on, well, the foundation of our very existence. We're diving into Unit 1, the definition, scope, and importance of environmental studies. If you've ever wanted to understand how the world around you actually works, how our crazy modern lives fit into the grand machinery of the Earth, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to build a crystal clear understanding of our planet's systems. So, let's unpack this.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap for our journey today. First up, the environmental wake-up call. Then, defining environmental studies, followed by the need for awareness, components of our environment, natural and social environments, and finally, principles for survival. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The environmental wake-up call.
So to really understand why environmental studies matters, we first kind of have to face a pretty grim reality. For the past century or so, mankind has been on this relentless pursuit of development. We've had this crazy industrial and technological boom, which the source text actually describes as a Midas touch, right? We thought we were turning everything to gold, optimizing the whole planet just to suit our needs, and let's be honest, our greed. But that didn't secure our future. Actually, it proved to be a massive hurdle. We deeply disrupted the ecological balance of nature. We basically shook the foundation of our own house. And that is the dramatic wake-up call that really needs to shake us out of our complacency.
Section 2. Defining environmental studies.
So, if our so-called Midas touch broke the balance, how on earth do we even begin to fix it? Well, we need a seriously robust toolkit. When people hear environmental studies, they usually just picture botany or zoology, trees and animals. But actually, chemistry and physics are what explain the physical nature of pollution. And to understand how people function and why we cause this damage in the first place, we desperately need philosophy, ethics, psychology, anthropology, and even economics. Environmental studies takes all of these wildly different disciplines and weaves them together. It gives us this holistic, big-picture view of how to actually sustain life on Earth.
But before we go any further, let's formally define what we're actually talking about. Your environment isn't just, nature out there in the woods. It's the sum total of living and non-living components. And critically, it includes their influences and the events surrounding an organism. It's this incredibly intricate, closely interacting, self-perpetuating system where literally everything is connected. It's the whole shebang.
Section 3. The need for awareness.
So, having defined the environment and that massive multi-toolkit required to understand it, why is this such an urgent necessity for the general public? Why isn't this just for academics in a lab coat? Well, it's because the casual attitude of everyday human beings is actually the root cause of all these problems. Education for environmental awareness isn't just for scientists or engineers or policymakers. It is for every single one of us. Yes, you and me. By educating ourselves, we develop an environmental ethic. We learn how to actually live with limited natural resources, and we empower ourselves to hold industries and governments accountable so we can avoid some pretty disastrous futures.
Section 4. Components of our environment.
Let's shift our focus for a second to the exact physical and biological parts that make up our world. We generally divide the environment into two main components. First, you've got biotic components. These are the living things, right? Plants, animals, microbes. Then you have abiotic components, the non-living physical things like sunlight, water, soil, air. But don't let those categories fool you into thinking they're totally separate. No way. They are completely interdependent. Animals depend on green plants for food and oxygen, and plants depend on animals for pollination and spreading their seeds. No organism can survive without constantly interacting with both the living and non-living parts of its environment.
And this brilliantly illustrates how that incredible interconnectedness leads us right to the biosphere. That is, the specific zone where life actually operates. It sits perfectly, like a sweet spot, right at the intersection of the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere. The biosphere is where these massive planetary spheres meet and interact, making life as we know it possible. And think about it. If you disrupt the water or the air, you are directly shrinking the safe space in that central bubble of life.
Section 5. Natural and social environments.
Let's see how all of this builds when we introduce the human element. Because obviously, we don't just live in forests and rivers. Human beings are deeply social animals. Our social environment is built by our networks, our political, religious, economic, and family institutions. This sociocultural layer totally dictates our actions. It's where we learn our morals, transfer our cultural heritage, and group ourselves into communities. Understanding this is absolutely vital, because our social environment almost always dictates how we end up treating our natural environment.
And what happens when our social environment scales up?
we get our built environment. And boy, does that bring some massive contradictions. The source text points out this striking paradox. Concrete skyscrapers literally coexisting right next to slums, all of it sitting under an atmosphere that's choking on traffic exhaust and factory smoke. We've created these highly complex, man-made environments, but we've often done it in a way that degrades both human dignity and the natural world at the exact same time.
Even when we try to integrate nature into our urban spaces, we are consciously manipulating it. A city park is a classic example of a man-made environment. We literally engineer the physical surroundings. We decide exactly where the water flows, we throw up iron fences, and we carefully curate the plant life. We have this immense power to shape the physical world around us, which really brings us to the ultimate question of how we should be shaping it.
Section 6. Principles for Survival.
So the crucial point is this. If we know we've disrupted the balance, and we know our natural and social environments are completely intertwined, what are the fundamental rules we absolutely must adopt? Well, it comes down to sustainable development. Now, this isn't about stopping all economic growth or, going back to living in caves. It's defined as a pattern of resource use that aims to meet our present needs, but without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. It is the ultimate harmony between economic development and environmental conservation.
But achieving that sustainability, that requires strict adherence to some very specific core principles. We have to maintain biodiversity. We need to keep that huge variety of species alive and kicking. We must protect the natural material cycles, like the water and carbon cycles, because they keep the whole Earth balanced. We need to conserve our natural capital, basically treating the Earth's assets with the respect they deserve. And practically speaking, this means doing things like environmental impact assessments, or EIAs, for every new dam, highway, or mine. We have to rigorously weigh the short-term economic benefit against the true long-term environmental cost.
The source material actually warns us with chilling clarity. Our current behavior with the environment is, and I quote, no longer life-supporting. We are pushing our renewable resources to their absolute breaking points. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative final question to ponder. Will we change our actions to meet our needs today without sacrificing the survival of tomorrow? The framework of environmental studies gives us the exact tools we need to survive, but the choice to actually use them? Well, that's entirely up to us. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.